Lelouch v Britannia has always been an interesting character to me. I recently watched Code Geass a couple months ago, and I see why Lelouch is heralded as one of the greatest characters in modern anime. Lelouch was born into a broken world, and instead of accepting it, he chooses to rebel against it. And it's ironic because Lelouch hated control, but lost himself in that same power. Code Geass is not about a hero overthrowing an empire, it's about a boy losing himself to the illusion of control. In this video, we'll break down Lelouch's character arc across the entire series of Code Geass, and how every attempt to dominate fate brought him closer to becoming what he feared the most. Lelouch is introduced as a brilliant but bitter student living in exile under a false identity. His hatred of Britannia's social Darwinist empire is deep-rooted but abstract. In this world, the Britannia Empire has taken over much of the countries, including Japan, and the citizens of Japan are treated like lower-class humans, and referred to as 11s. Lelouch is one of the many heirs to the throne of Britannia, but was thrown out alongside his sister after the murder of their mother. But everything changes in Shinjuku when he meets C2 and inherits the Geass, the power to command absolute obedience. And now Lelouch has finally got what he always wanted, a way to act on his rage. With one command, he turns a squadron of Britannian soldiers on themselves. It's not just victory, but it's awakening of the new Lelouch. He creates the persona of Zero, a masked revolutionary who can manipulate the battlefield and the public opinion alike. And at this point in the story, Lelouch truly believes that he can change the system and remain relatively clean. He thinks control means protection and that he could build a world where Nunnally can live in peace. But that is far from the truth. Lelouch builds the Black Knights not as a movement, but as a way to further his own agenda. To the public, the Black Knights are protecting the 11s and represent true justice, while Lelouch is trying to use them for his own revenge and reform. Lelouch is so cunning that he maintains power through secrecy, manipulation, and even narrative control. The people love Zero, but they don't even know who he is. And Lelouch starts using the people as tools. He uses Callan, Suzaku, and even Shirley. Shirley was put through so much stress after finding out that Lelouch was the person who killed her father, as well as being manipulated by Mao and even having to shoot Valletta Nui. It was all too much for her to bear, so Lelouch just opted to erase her memory and everything about Lelouch. Even though Shirley was against this idea, Lelouch took away her ability to choose and erased her memories. And Lelouch even showed remorse in what he did to Shirley, and felt like he lost someone precious to him. And even though Shirley did not want to lose her memories, Lelouch wiped it anyways. And it's at this point in the story that we see how dirty Lelouch's hands have become. And it's about to get worse when we're introduced to Euphemia. Euphemia is Lelouch's half-sister and is actually way different than the rest of the royal family. She believes in peace and treating Japanese people like actual citizens and wants to create a zone for them to live in. And this completely baffles Lelouch because that's exactly what he was trying to fight for. He wanted the Japanese to have their own nation, and here comes Euphemia promising that. At this point, the Black Knights are all in favor of Euphemia's plan for the Special Administrative Zone. But Lelouch was hesitant about this plan because he didn't think it was going to actually hold weight in the Britannia Empire. But when it did, he was actually on board. And honestly, I don't really blame Lelouch for what happened next. He was jokingly saying that, you'll kill all the Japanese or kill all the 11s, and his Geass just misfires and programs Euphemia to do this. And then so she slaughters a ton of Japanese, completely losing trust within the people, and causing the Black Knights to be fueled to wage war, and ended up killing Euphemia, which was just unfortunate on all aspects. And I think this is the one death of the series that Lelouch wasn't trying to do, but it just happened because of his power. But at the end, he did kill Yuffie, which was pretty cold-hearted and ruthless. And it's at this point where Lelouch starts to snap. He becomes more merciless and unfeeling. And after Euphemia's death, Lelouch has no choice but to make the Black Knights go into all-out war against Britannia. But during one of their major battles, when Nunnally is kidnapped, Lelouch just abandons the Black Knights and chases after Nunnally. He throws everybody away, and the Black Knights are without their leader during the time they need him the most. And as a result, his army is crushed, and his identity is revealed to Suzaku, who then captures him. And this is the first time Lelouch has faced true failure. And when Lelouch is brought to his father, it turns out that his father also possesses the Geass and erases all of Lelouch's memories. And during this time, Lelouch just goes back to being a normal student. And the Black Knights go into hiding or are captured by the army. Season 2 shows us a Lelouch that's more unhinged and more alone than we've seen before. As soon as Lelouch regains his powers and memories, he manipulates people on a whole other level. Take for example, Rollo. He manipulates Rollo to lie to everyone around him and continues to treat everybody as pawns to him. And all Rollo wants is for Lelouch to look at him like a younger brother. But in reality, Lelouch is filled with hatred and resentment towards Rollo. He only sees Nunnally as his true sibling. Lelouch lies to Rollo and says that he actually loves and cares about him just to get Rollo to do whatever he says and to never question him. And that dedication that he cultivated in Rollo actually backfired. Shirley regained her memories and then confronted Rollo about helping Lelouch in his plan. And Rollo, thinking that Lelouch's love for him was genuine, didn't want any other competition and saw Shirley as a threat. Filled with jealousy and rage, Rollo actually killed Shirley, which gave Lelouch so much grief and anguish. And again we see that someone else that Lelouch had truly cared about was killed in a war that he started. But even so, Lelouch keeps going, because he wants to make sure that all the blood he spilled wasn't for nothing. Lelouch then confronts his parents in the metaphysical realm of C2's world, where we see the full picture. His parents want to erase individuality, to create a perfect eternal now where no one can lie or suffer. And Lelouch says no, not because he believes in people, but because he believes in choice, in the freedom no matter the pain to choose your own destiny. It's one of Lelouch's most human moments. Lelouch believes that people need to fight through reality and not escape into a collective delusion. He then kills his parents, declares that the world belongs to the people, and that he'll destroy the old lies and build something better. But here's the irony. The world Lelouch says he wants to build is one of agency and choice, but the world he creates is one where he alone holds power and everyone else follows. He says no one should control the world, but he becomes the new emperor of Britannia. He says his parents were wrong to strip humanity of its freedom, then he uses Geass to strip individuals of their will over and over again. Lelouch has been playing God the entire series. He believes that people can't be trusted with the truth, so he lies. He believes that people must choose their own path, yet he chooses it for them. And that contradiction is the core of his tragedy, because even as he talks about justice and freedom, Lelouch's actions are driven by fear. He doesn't trust people to solve the world's problems, he only trusts himself. His hypocrisy isn't a flaw in the writing, but it's the point. Lelouch is a control addict pretending to fight for liberation, and it's only in the final act when he gives up that control that his words finally match his actions. The final war was a turning point for the entire series and for Lelouch as a character. During this battle, Lelouch's world comes crumbling down. Schneisel was able to successfully secure the allegiance of both Nunnally and the Black Knights by strategically exploiting their trust, ideals, and disillusionment with Lelouch. But for Lelouch, the only thing that has ever mattered was Nunnally. And when Lelouch finally faces Nunnally, he expects her to understand everything he did was for her and to build a better world. But instead, Nunnally opposes everything that Lelouch has done. She calls him a coward and labels him despicable for the things he has done with his Geass, for the blood that is on his hands and the people he has manipulated. But in that same vein, Lelouch confronts Nunnally for being in control of the Damocles and for the people she has killed. And I actually really like this interaction between these two siblings because Nunnally says that she wants to become the center of hatred for the world so that way people can move towards the future. And Lelouch looks unexpectedly relieved when he hears Nunnally say this. He says that they actually had the same idea. This moment marks the turning point where Lelouch fully acknowledges that the path he has taken is beyond redemption, and that no vision, no matter how noble it was in the beginning, can justify the weight of the evils he has done. And now, with a clear head, he knows what he must do. He uses his Geass for the first time on his little sister. But this time when he uses his Geass, it's not to control someone, but it's to free them. And he frees Nunnally from the burden that she would have to carry as the world's most hated person. And Lelouch actually gives Nunnally a heartwarming final message, but too bad she was under his Geass to actually hear what he said. He says that you have grown up following your own thoughts without the help from others, and because of that, he is now able to follow the path towards his destiny. And I actually really like this final message from Lelouch. He recognizes that Nunnally is not that scared and timid little girl that she used to be, and she is now a full-grown adult with her own thoughts and feelings, and she doesn't need to rely on Lelouch anymore. And because of that, Lelouch feels comfortable enough to leave Nunnally and follow his own path towards his destiny. And this is the first time in the entire series where Lelouch is completely honest with Nunnally. No more lies, no more tricks. Lelouch is just his authentic self for Nunnally. And she can actually see him for the first time as the person Lelouch has always been. But even so, there is still one last lie that needs to be told by Lelouch. Lelouch now has control over the Damocles and has essentially taken over the world as the 99th Emperor of Britannia. And now he began the final stage of his plan, the Zero Requiem. He will take Nunnally's position as the world's greatest villain and as a focal point for the hatred of the entire world. He will unite every nation, every army, and every person under one banner, their hatred of him. And at the height of his reign, he will be murdered by the person he created, Zero. The hero who once created miracles will rise again and lead the next generation of people into the new world. But the irony is, the person behind the mask of Zero this time is Suzaku Kurorugi. And for the entire series, Suzaku and Lelouch never stood on the same side until now. With everything that both of them had gone throughout the entire series, they were finally on the same page on how to achieve peace. Both of them understood that there needed to be a shared enemy and that Zero still had to exist in this world to be a beacon of hope. So they divided the task. Lelouch would become the enemy that died at Zero's hand, but Suzaku would sacrifice everything for Euphemia's dream of peace, including his identity, his personal life, and the possibility of ever being himself again, to shoulder the responsibility that comes with being Zero. And it's honestly beautiful because Suzaku is the only person Lelouch can actually trust because he knows that he has the strength and resolve to endure the pain of living a lie, just like he was able to resolve himself for death. And as Lelouch dies, his final smile is not for victory, but for freedom. And the freedom he has finally given to the world, and most importantly, Nunnally. Lelouch's story is much more than a rebellion or a battle for power. It's a deep exploration of ambition, morality, and the limits of control. He begins with an ambitious goal to protect his sister and create a peaceful world. But as he gains power, the lines between right and wrong start to blur. Lelouch, who fights for freedom, ends up imposing his will on the world, embodying the very oppression he once despised. And the cost of his ambition grows ever higher. Lelouch faces a painful truth. No amount of control or power can create a peace without exacting a devastating toll. And he kept going until that toll was too much for him to bear. And it was only then that he understood what he must do. To atone for his sins and to give the world a chance at a new beginning, Lelouch sacrificed himself, embracing the role of the villain so that others may be free. And I love this final act so much because it shows that true change requires surrender, which is something that he had opposed the entire series. And in the end, Lelouch's story proves the tragic reality of his journey, that the illusion of control is just that, an illusion. True power lies not in ruling the world, but in knowing when to let go. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!